Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Equal Television International, where we look at stories that are trending from our Nigerian newspaper. I'm Sana Elisha, and Richard Tanzi is here with me. Good morning, Richard.
Morning, sir.
Hope you're doing good.
I'm fine.
All right, we're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so you can do well by dropping your comment or your contributions on our Facebook and YouTube channel. And later on the show, we will open the phone line so you can be actively involved. And right away, we'll be going through the papers, and Richard will be taking us through the first paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Atiku will grant Kanu unconditional release if elected president. This is coming from Okonko. Tinubu Gulfs can demarch Nigerians' international standing, coming from Atiku. We are campaigning for Tinubu, other APC candidates on Akeredulo's achievements. This is coming from the party chair. DSS intercepts syndicate selling new currency notes, bank officials implicated. Only military aircraft can land in Ekiti Airport, coming from the government. And the big story on Nigerian Tribune, PDP APC fight over Buhari's visit to Kano. He was attacked. PDP security agencies must investigate PDP spokesman, coming from APC. Some foreign nations bent on destroying Nigeria, says president. Still on Nigerian Tribune, on 2023 elections must hold as scheduled, Afenifere insists, cautions judiciary against being used to abort polls, challenges federal government on fuel scarcity, narrow note swap, and then energy problems. Ex-Petroleum Minister Dezeni goes to court over seized assets. Delta government debunks seeking fresh 100 billion naira note. And on Ajeleba Bridge accident, Sanwo-Olu directs trial of truck owner and driver. Federal government Lagos to install barriers on bridges. Nigerians bemoan incessant tanker container accidents on bridges and roads, and you can read all of that stories on page 27. And at the downside of the paper, Buhari inaugurates NSIA 10 megawatts Kano solar power project, and you can read all about the project on page 5. We have a picture story showing the massive queue at ATMs, people trying to get the new currency, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Matrix newspaper, we have the first story, which is on Naira redesign. Lugwa accuses Emifele of misleading Buhari. You can read that column inside the paper. And we have Cristiano Ronaldo will return to Europe, coming from El Nassr coach. That's for sport lovers. Federal government inaugurate new passport office in Alimoshu, Lagos. You can read that also on the front page and continue to read more inside the paper. And the big story is on 2023 APC PDP in fresh confrontation. PDP trying to cause disharmony in APC through fake news, coming from the APC. Calls for arrest of the PDP publicity secretary Oluguba. And then we have Tinubu responsible for attacks on Buhari in Kano. This is coming from the PDP. So you can read more of that story on page 2. And on Lassa fever, NCDC raises the alarm, says Nigeria at very high risks of increased transmission. That can be found on page 4. And we have on the NLC to resume the Abuja-Kaduna train service today. And we have the picture story here where we can see Buhari eventually visiting Kano. And then we have Ganduji and other ministers during the commissioning of the project in Kano yesterday. We saw in the papers where the Kano governor said the president is welcome to visit the state. Downside of the paper, Nigeria's oil bid process leaves investors in doubt. You can read that on page 18 of the Matrix paper, and that's all on the Matrix newspaper.
On New Telegraph, cargo examination. Customs abandoned 12.7 billion naira scanning machine. You can start the story on the front page and continue on page 3. World Bank boosts Nigeria's technical vocational training with $200 million. Ajeleba accident, Sanwo-Olu orders trial of truck owner and driver. UBA appoints Bawa first female CEO for Africa operations. Still on 2023 elections, Southern Kaduna Christian Muslim leaders sign peace pact. UTME registration, personal email compulsory for candidates coming from JAM. And the big story on New Telegraph, 25 days to election. Violence intensifies in Lagos, Katsina, Bauchi, others. The writer says Atiku, Tinubu, Obi remain targets of attacks. Guba candidate in Ebonyi, Borno, others affected. Groups urge Buhari to probe election-related harassment. Federal government backs U.S. visa ban on anti-democratic elements. UN to lawyers ensure success of 2023 election. On insecurity, Buhari accuses foreign nations of destroying Nigeria. And if you want to read about that accusation, you can go to page 4 of the New Telegraph. Still on the papers, presidential campaign. Tinubu vows to create massive employment for Nigerians, and a statement coming from Atiku, what I will do differently to rescue Nigerian economy. Atiku will grant Kanu unconditional release, coming from Okonko. You can read all of that on page 28 and 28. And at Abia North, Isukweto Orechukwu affirms support for Kalu. You can read that on page 2. Wike kicks as PDP bars lawyer from handling river cases. That story can be found on page 29. DSS NAP syndicate racketeering new bank notes. That story can be found on page 2 and 8. At the downside of the paper, we have a study, coffee with milk may lower disease risks. And if you're interested in that study for our coffee lovers, you can find it on page 28. We still have a picture story of our president's visit to Kano yesterday. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
And on First News, we have 70% of ECOWAS court judgment not implemented. This is coming from the president. And we have the cashless system will help track election financing, coming from the vice president, Osibanjo. Obasanjo wanted to roast Atiku like goat's meat. I rescued him, says Tinubu. You can read more of that story inside the paper. The big story still on Naira redesign, cash trap, Nigerians groan as old and new notes become unavailable in banks and ATM and POS. Bank officials blame CBN for the scarcity. I just hope this issue of this new Naira note, it being scarce, truly it's more like making the masses to suffer, because I was a victim yesterday and I know what I went through standing on that ATM queue for almost 3 hours plus, and there are people that have been standing there for much more, you know, just for you to be able to have access. And imagine queuing or standing on the queue, and then all you have to withdraw was just 2,000 naira. So just imagine the stress of all of that. Even though while I was there, some officials, or would I say some from the CBN, were actually going around the ATMs to be sure that the ATMs are actually dispensing, to be sure that people that actually, the machines are like quite fast, and then because there's already a law coming from CBN that even the bankers cannot withdraw from the bank inside, so they have to also join the queue. So imagine you working in a particular bank, joining the queue also for you to be able to have access. And it's even so sad because some of the POS are even taking advantage of this new currency to make money out of the masses. Can you imagine that for every 1,000 naira you withdraw, you have to pay 100 naira? So if I am withdrawing 10,000 naira, I have to pay 1,000 naira if I want the new currency. And you can see this is what we're saying. Some people are making money out of the new currency. And somebody was saying that no matter how we keep exploiting each other, finally after February 10, the currency will be everywhere.
It will be
so
everywhere.
I just hope that I'm happy that we saw in other people DSS are going around
Yeah,
syndicating
they
those
are.
people that are selling this new naira note. But more needs to be done because it's no longer funny anymore. Imagine if you have to withdraw just because the minimum you have to, or the maximum you have to withdraw is 20,000 naira, and then you have a patient in the hospital. If that hospital do not have an app or how you have to transfer, you have to keep going over and over, or you have to transfer the money to different people's account, and then you keep withdrawing. So it's no longer funny anymore. So I just hope that something better will be done, honestly, because the queues, we saw it on the pictures, the queues are no longer funny. I begin
Yeah,
to
I
wonder,
know.
why are people standing on that queue? And you won't blame them. Possibly, maybe you have to do something. Even I
Of
know you
course.
can withdraw more than that, but then there is a percentage you have to pay at the end of the
True.
day. But I just can't wait for all of this to be over.
Of course, and you know, one of the things that concerns me is the back and forth now between the CBN and these commercial banks. Because yesterday on the paper, we could see CBN telling the banks that they will probe any bank that is holding this cash or
Yes.
doing any shady transactions. And now you can see the bank saying that the CBN is to be held responsible for the scarcity of the notes. And then we don't want to be seeing this on the paper. We don't want to hear the CBN saying they've given these banks the money, the banks are holding it, and now the banks are saying no, the CBN should be held responsible for the scarcity in the notes. Let everybody do the needful. Wherever the problem in the chain of supply is, let it be fixed. If truly the CBN is responsible for the scarcity, let the CBN produce more of this. Let them print out more of these notes. If it is the commercial banks, let them stop hoarding it. Let them stop selling these notes, because we will keep saying we might be speculating it, but I believe that there are witnesses who have witnessed these bankers or something shady going on in the banks. Because for long now, let's say the CBN have started making these notes available since the 5th, as they have said. Even if it's not much in circulation, I want to believe we should have been seeing a better number in availability of these notes than we have seen. And then it had to be the rush we had last week that made these notes more available. I keep imagining, if the CBN hadn't put a very short deadline and made that much rush, I believe there will still be more hoarding coming from our banks. But now they're in a situation where they can't do that. They have to make it available and all of that. So we are starting to see it. So yes, in as much as there's a lot of chaos like going on, it is making these currencies available either way. And then let everybody do what they're expected. Let the POS agents stop exploiting people. Let the banks stop hoarding it. And if it's the CBN that are not making this cash available enough, let them make sure that these commercial banks have it.
Of course, Richard. Other stories still on first news we have on Adeleke Oshun. APC obtained incomplete Beavers report, says the ex-INEC director. And we have another story here. Foreign powers behind insecurity in Nigeria, Buhari alleges. Wike vows to hit back at PDP leader, says anti-party begets anti-party. And we have the ex-petroleum minister Dazini moves to recover 6 asset applies to court. And that's all on the first news.
On Leadership newspaper, article will release Nnamdi Kanu as president. Tinubu vows to tackle insecurity, food and fuel crisis. You can read all of those promises on page 31 and page 6. And we have a trending story, motorists agitated over high cost of fuel and scarcity. And on numbers, cash swap, CBN recovers 19 trillion naira from circulation. And you can read all of that briefings on page 2. And on petrol, Pengasan wants license of marketers selling above pump price revoked. You can read that on page 7. And on insecurity, PMB accuses foreign powers of destroying Nigeria. And if you're interested to why the president is making such an accusation, get the Leadership newspaper and go to page 7. And the big story on leadership, Raila Odinga headlines leadership conference. The writer says VP Osibanjo chairs event as Nigeria's top personalities converge in Abuja. And we have a picture showing these top personalities and companies. At the left side of the paper, we have in other own words, it is a recognition of the impact of export import bank on Nigeria and Africa. Coming from Professor Benedict, I am delighted and elated to be at leadership. It's motivating for me to do better at Marwan. And these are all statements coming from the people that will be attending this conference. And that's all the news on leadership.
And on the Guardian newspaper, Nigerian risks losing foreign asset to reckless borrowing. This is coming from civil society's warning. And we have Atiku will hit to appeal court judgment on Kano if elected president, says Okonko. And SIA 10 megawatt solar power will attract FDI to Kano. And we have the CNPP 6 sanction for hodlers of new Naira note. That you can find on page 9. And the big story, Nigeria must not fail with 2023 polls. UN scribe warns. Charges the NBA to ensure success of general election. NBA apologizes to Nigerians for neglecting role. Polls must hold as scheduled. Afenifere insists. Warn against use of court to abort exercise. EU deploy 100 observers to monitor the elections. Sharia Council fears staggering polls may instigate violence. And Otomi says INEC must pass confidence tests and tackle underage voting and vote buy-in. As Nigerians count down to the presidential poll, which will hold in the next 25 days, the Deputy Secretary General of the UN and Chair of the UN Sustainability Group, Mrs. Amina J. Mohammed, has warned that Nigeria cannot afford to fail with the 2023 general elections. She also urged the Nigeria Bar Association to ensure success of the polls. Mohammed stated this yesterday in her keynote address delivered at the State of the Nation Dialogue on Security, Economic and Administration of Justice organized by the NBA in Abuja, urging the association to come up with how to effectively manage conflict that may arise from the conduct of the election. The UN Deputy Secretary General said as Africa's leading economy with the biggest port and security anchor for our neighboring countries, Nigeria cannot simply afford to fall UN with support, and then afford to fail the UN. UN will support any process that would lead to credible or conclusive, fair and free election. UN is committed to accompany Nigeria on this journey, and you can read more of that on the front page and also on page 6. Despite extension, Nigerians can't withdraw the old and new notes. That can also be found on page 6. And downside, we have our agitation is for a restructured Nigeria, not Yoruba president, says Bola Wole. You can read that on page 14, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On this day newspaper, PDP PCC article will grant Nnamdi Kanu unconditional release if elected president. The writer says insists he has blueprint to restore peace in Southeast. Ex-VP says Tinubu constant gaffes tragic and embarrassing. You can continue with that on page 10. Coming from INEC, we plan to declare election results swiftly. We're looking forward to that. Coming from Tinubu, power to elect new leaders rests on electorate. Protesters barricade roads, stone Buhari's helicopter in Kano. The writer says Nigeria's situation far better than other countries. Coming from the president, urges citizens to appreciate what they have. Inaugurates Dala Inland Dry Port. NSIA's 10 megawatt solar plant, 469 family housing units, other projects in Kano. PDP condemns attack on president. And the big story on this day, Usibajo backs push for cashless economy, says it will curb illicit election financing. The writer says CBN harps on banks, cooperatives to enhance cash swap, ensure success of polls, UN charges lawyers. EU to deploy 100 election observers. NBA apologizes to Nigerians for abdicating leadership role, sets agenda for presidential candidates. Federal government welcomes U.S. visa ban on Nigerians undermining democracy. And then we have a picture story showing the president inaugurating the NSIA solar plant. And that's all the news on this day.
On the Daily Times newspaper, UN election observation missions arrive the country ahead of polls. The big story says hardship and scarcity of new note persists at ATMs. And we have Nigerians' public debt hit 44.06 trillion naira in the third quarter of 2022. How brands can avoid influencer marketing challenges. That also you can find on page 2. And we have coming from the president says appreciate fantastic infrastructural development in country. Inaugurates Dala Inland Dry Port and 10 megawatts Haske solar plant and others. You can read more of that story inside the paper. We have a picture story where we can see the Lagos State Governor with the president of the African Development Bank. So you can grab the paper and see what that meeting was all about.
On the Punch newspaper, on new Naira, racketeering booms in Lagos, Abuja, and Anambra. DSS arrests unauthorized dealers, POS operators hike charges. Return seized assets to meet, Zeni tells federal government. We have 650 naira petrol, Pengasan plans clamp down on marketers. The big story is on Buhari's Kano visit. Protesting youth barricade road, stone helicopter. The writer says Nigerians don't appreciate what they have, says Buhari as protesters rampage. Foreign elements using Boko Haram to destabilize Nigeria, president insists. APC campaign council kicks as PDP blames Tinubu Ganduje for attacks. And so before we move to other stories, because this caught my attention, is on the previous paper and is on this paper also, where the president is saying Nigerians don't appreciate what they want. I think it's not about appreciating what we want, but we're in the position where we keep saying it here, that Nigeria has the capacity to do better, to grow better, and we're supposed to be way above and past where we are as a country. But for some reason we are stagnant, and I keep saying we are a depreciating economy, because it feels like we're starting from the beginning in every sector, whereas we should be far ahead where we are now. And I believe that the anger is not that we're not grateful with what we have, but if I am angry about the government of Nigeria today, it's not because of what we have, but what we should have and what we're not having. And I feel every youth knows that we're in a country where much can be done. Our doctors are japaying. Is it that we don't have what it takes to take care of our doctors? Because we do. But why are they not being taken care of? Why are we neglecting the health sector and allowing our doctors to go when we know we need them? Because it's not that we're not capable of taking care of them, but we are neglecting these sectors. What should be done over the years to make sure that there is some consistent growth is not happening. What about our agricultural sector? We shouldn't be facing scarcity because we have a very fertile land. It's there in our coat of arms, it's there in our flag that we are a fertile country. So why are we having scarcity of food in this country when you can literally grow anything in your house? We can use the plateau as an example. You create a small garden at your backyard and anything grows there, and you can have a steady supply of vegetables. There are so many things that are not functioning in this country, and I believe that we are entitled to how we feel as citizens, because we see a system that has failed us when they should or could do better. We have the capacity to do everything, and the president shouldn't be telling Nigerians to be contented and appreciate what they have, that we are not appreciating what we have. I believe it's offensive in a way, because I, as a Nigerian, it's not about appreciating what I have, but seeing that we could do better as a country, and we've been having leaders that have been disappointing us, and we just want more from them. We know they can do more, but for some reason they are not delivering the promises that they have made to us and have made us elect them as leaders, and they have not executed those promises.
Yeah, Richard, I think even though I stand on a different point of view coming from this, because for every nation, we have a government that actually oversees things. And for every president, he have his ministers, like that of our Nigeria here. We have the Senate, we have reps, we have the judiciary. We have different arms of government, and it's expected that every arm of the government should actually take up its responsibility as it should. That I should see the executive giving out, doing what is expected of them. I should see the legislative implementing laws that will actually benefit the country. I should see the judiciary following up that whatever law has been passed by the legislature is actually being put to book, and then I should expect that the citizens or the electorate should follow up on that. Now that is how things are supposed to move. Now, looking at what the president is saying here that Nigerians do not appreciate, of course, I think that is coming from the point of view where we saw that the president's convoy was being stolen in Kano. This is actually contradictory, because yesterday we saw where the governor of Kano said he is welcoming the president. So it's expected that everything should have been put in place, even though I know he did not have the monopoly of knowledge or power to actually tell people not to behave. People react differently, but I totally condemn the stoning of this. There are better ways you can actually point your agitation, or when you're not happy about something that is happening. There are better ways. What happened to letter writing? Back was then, we remember that the former president, Obasanjo, has been tagged as always loving to write letters. That when he's not happy with what is happening, you write a letter. And there are better ways to do it. I know people feel that maybe when you actually air out your view, you will be attacked. But then there are better ways to actually address certain things that are not happening. When you stone his convoy, would that make things better? Of course not. We have been kicking against it, because not only was the president, we remember Atiku was being attacked on his way, Obi was attacking Christina, and then we've heard people have been attacked. I'm yet to hear if Tinubu has been attacked during his campaign. Now, these are things that we have been trying to kick against violence. We are a peaceful nation. We are saying UN's eyes is on us. They're expecting much more from us, because conducting election in Nigeria, every other African country's eye is on us, because they're expecting us to be the mother when you lead them. We've been the mother when it comes to giving various nations or supporting them to have their independence. So if Nigerians are not appreciating as a president, of course, I know there are better ways you can actually make them see your worth. It's by not even talking about it, but making sure that you address those things that Nigeria feel is not working. Are we talking about insecurity? Of course, there's still insecurity in Nigeria. But as a president, as ministers, senate, and what are you doing? If you are representing a particular part of your state, what are you doing to make sure that your voice is being heard? And apart from the fact that your voice is being heard, what are you contributing to making sure that your own part of whatever you are overseeing, you're making sure that security agencies are up and about their responsibility? Of course, I know that there are certain parts that are worse, insecurity is worse than the other, but right now it's everywhere. Whether you're in the north, whether you're in the south, whether you are in the west, wherever you are, this insecurity is there. It's looking into that. You spoke about the fact that our doctors are leaving. Of course, our doctors are leaving, and that is where I said, what is the Minister of Health doing about this? Have you let the president know that our doctors are leaving, and I'm worried about this? What can we do to make sure that they stay? Here we are saying that someone is saying that Dogwa is saying that the president was being influenced by the CBN governor. There's something he's not telling him. Of course, we're not trying to say CBN did something more, but look at the short interval of time he got the Naira to be redesigned, and he's telling us to return our own Naira note. As a minister, what am I doing there? Why is my own sector failing? That should tell on me. As the Minister of Road and Transport, why are we still having lots of potholes? So I believe that if you're able to have all your cabinet members on their toe to do what is expected of them to do, to some extent, Nigerians will appreciate you. And as a Nigerian, if I am not happy with what is happening, there are better ways I can go about this. We've been kicking against justice system. I remember during the hashtag #EndSARS. Of course, till date, Nigerians are not happy with what happened to those who died. But that was a peaceful protest when Nigerians were trying to pour their grievances. We're not happy with the way police brutality. We're not happy with bad governance. We're not happy with our schools being on strike. We're not happy with so many things that are not happening. And that was a very strong protest that shook the nation. And I just believe that. And it's because of that protest that we saw that the name of this SARS was changed at the end of the day. So I hope that there are better ways we can actually get results rather than being violent or rather than behaving in a way that makes us look like we're cowards, because we are not. We are educated Nigerians that there are better ways we can do things.
All right, still on the Punch newspaper, at the downside of the paper, 7 directors jostle for Accountant General's job. You can read that on page 27. Panic as Lagos hoodlums invade school and chase pupils. Federal government backs U.S. visa ban on election riggers, and you can read all of that on page 27. And that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Before we move further with the newspaper review, we'd like to take a time out so we can lead you through the stories. What do you feel about what the UN is saying, the issue of the scarcity of wealth, scarcity of new narrow node, and all of that have been happening. When we come back from the break, we'll take your calls, and also if there's any comment, we will read it. Please do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies on Network Television International. We've been looking at various stories that have been trending on our papers. We have the UN meeting that held yesterday, and we know that African nations' eye is on the forthcoming election with just 25 days to the general election. And we're still having the problem of the new naira note being very scarce, and we have to February 10, remember, for the owners to be returned to the bank, and fuel scarcity is still there. Pengassan have said that those marketers that are hoarding and actually increasing the fuel price should actually face the full wrath of the law. So these and many other stories are what we have been looking on the paper. So we really love it if you drop your comments, and also our phone numbers are displayed on your screen. You can call us and let us hear what your views are and what your inputs are concerning all of these. And I still have Rachel Tanzi here with me. Thank you so much, Rachel. All right, let's quickly go through the papers again. And we have on Nigerian News Direct, illegal naira note sales. DSS boss syndicate arrests bank officials. That you can find on page 7. And on Tribunal Vandit, Oshun boils as PDP talks illegally attack APC candidate, destroy billboards and secretariats. UBA appoints Abiola Bawood as the first female CEO. You can read more of that inside the paper. And the big story for Nigerian News Direct, Boko Haram international sponsors want to destroy Nigeria, coming from President Buhari. And we have the writer that says vows not to stay beyond May 29, backs the U.S. visa ban on Nigerians sponsoring undemocratic agenda. And on the Ukraine-Russia war, African Development Bank approves $1.5 billion emergency facility for Africans' food sufficiency. This is coming from additional the president. And we have other story on environmental impact assessment. Dangote Cement in BC to conduct panel review on coal mill. And TETFund remains live wire of colleges, public tertiary institution. This is coming from the COSISU chair. And we have few picture stories. One is which we can see the African Development Bank president, and the other where we can see President Muhammadu Buhari during the inauguration. And that's all on Nigerian News Direct.
On Daily Sun newspaper, article will grant Nnamdi Kanu unconditional release. INEC must address vote buying underage voting to gain trust, coming from Utomi, and you can read that on page 26. The big story, NLC mass protests loom over fuel naira scarcity. The writer says labor mobilizes, schools shut as groups express anger, petrol prices rises above post-subsidy benchmark of 410 naira per litre. You can read that on page 2 and 28. And still on new notes, amid CBN 11 days grace, cash shortage worsens. PDP candidate stunts APC counterpart, tells him Aso Rock is not sanatorium. states how he will change economic direction of Nigeria. And we have the story still on Buhari commissioning NSIA 10 megawatt Kano solar power project. My administration has done well, says the president. I rescued Atiku when Obasanjo wanted to roast him like goat meat, coming from Tinubu, and you can read how he did that on page 26. Uwodu, Itanyi, others Lud Ugwanyi on achievements back PDP candidates, and you can read that on page 27. At the downside of the paper, Wike accuses PDP NWC of anti-party activities, and that's all the news on Daily Sun.
All right, let's take this call from Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Good morning. Hello, Mr. Thomas. Can you hear me? Okay, maybe we'll end the call, then you call us back again. Please remember, when you call us, turn down the volume of your TV set, and also, or you can move away totally away from your TV, so we can actually have a very good communication here in the studio. Let's move to the next paper, which is the Voice of Liberty. On 2023 EU election observer mission to deploy 100 observers says it won't interfere with the process. Nigeria risks losing foreign assets to reckless borrowing, still coming from the civil society organization, and that's a warning. And on public anger, Nigerians own Tinubu gratitude over Abeokuta outbursts, coming from the Ariwa group. You can read more of that inside the paper. Petrol price now 550 naira in most cities as scarcity bites harder. POS. Okay, we have Mr. Thomas calling back. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for calling back. Good morning. I can hear you, Mr. Thomas. Please go on. All right, I think I have to go on with the paper because I can barely hear what Mr. Thomas have to say here. Maybe the network is a bit bad, Mr. Thomas, but I really appreciate if you call us back again. And the big story, petrol price. I can barely hear you, Mr. Thomas. Please call back.
Are we going to appreciate his administration, where we have many refineries that are not productive? Are we going to appreciate the type of fuel scarcity that Nigerians are experiencing in his administration? Are we going to appreciate his administration when we consider the rate of unemployment that is ravaging the country? Are we going to appreciate his administration, a situation where a court of competent jurisdiction will deliver a verdict and the government seems not to obey such a verdict from the court of competent jurisdiction? Are we going to appreciate his administration when ASU will go on strike for so many months? Are we going to appreciate his administration where the newly redesigned notes cannot be seen in the banks? Even the old notes cannot be seen in the bank. Are we going to appreciate his administration where corruption is escalating? The corruption has gone so far. I want to put it to the president that, yes, really, we are waiting for him to hand over power to the newly going to be elected president come May 2023. The president should be writing his handover address by now. Are we going to appreciate his administration where corruption is very high? The president, look at the type of insecurity that is ravaging all parts of the country, the type of agitation that we have experienced today. We have never experienced it in any administration. So the president should not be putting words into the mouth of the citizens. Are we going to appreciate his administration where families cannot see a single meal to eat, where many of our brothers and our sisters are living in IDPs? I'm disappointed.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Amen. God bless you too, People are having different views about the statement coming from the president on the fact that we need to appreciate him. And Mr. Thomas just listed so many things that he felt it's not going well in the country, and he really wants the government to do better. And this is just an eye-opener to the incoming administration, whether it's still the APC, whoever, or the PDP, whoever is coming into power, to know that you have a lot and that Nigerians are hoping for the best. Nigerians are hoping for a government that will look at the plight of the people and also, meet them up at the point of their need. So we look forward to seeing a better Nigeria, because it is very, very possible, Rachel.
Yes.
And the big story, petrol price now 550 in most cities. The scarcity bites harder. POS racket at Abuja petrol stations. The blame game over the 5-month fuel scarcity at the weekend continues yesterday, with motorists and other users of the product paying between 240 and 550 per litre in major cities across the country. And this is really another point of what is the problem. I really just hope because when the papers say 5 months of fuel scarcity, it's more than 5 months, Rachel.
Indeed.
From last year February, things have not been the same ever. From the adulterated fuel we had, lots of things have not been going as they should. And just like I said, this is not a blame game. I'm not here to pass the blame to say who is responsible, whether it's the Minister of Petroleum, because we know the President is the Minister of Petroleum. We know Silva is there at the state level. And then we have other people that are working. And we saw, just like I said from the paper, where we saw Pengasa saying that marketers that are increasing the price, the full rot of the law should take its place. So now I'm beginning to wonder what really is the problem. We are seeing that POS, not only are they collecting bribe or collecting money from the new Naira, no, we can see them racketing at Abuja petrol station. So a lot of things are not going well. And I just hope that the DSS are watching this. They gave ultimatum from last year. They have been giving them time to do this, say they should make the fuel available and all of these. And we saw last week where Tinubu was very angry, saying all of this is to frustrate the election. But regardless of what it is, one thing is for sure, we just hope things get better. We will not give up on Nigeria, because this is the only home we have. The only color we love, which is green, white, green. So I just hope that the government will look into this. Just look at people being stranded. Transport fare, of course, will be high, and you have no choice, because we need to run 1 or 2 deals. So definitely you want to apply, whether you're using your own private car or you are going to take that. So I hope we'll do that. Okay, we have another caller. Hello, Gochuku. Good morning. If you can hear me, please go on.
Like it's just that the president of this country the man is very, very bad. So what we need, we don't need this president again. We don't need anything in Nigeria again. We want Biafra. Let them give us Biafra, so that let us be on our way. Let other people be on their way. That's the only thing. If they fail to do, if they fail to give us Biafra, what will happen in this country? We are going to make this country to be polo course will happen in this country. So the best solution, let them give us this Biafra any moment now, or let them grant referendum to us. That's what we need. We don't need anything. We don't need any president. We don't need anything. There's not, if not so, this country will be messed. And forth. So what we need Biafra. There's nothing again. We don't need anything again. We need only
Thank you,
Biafra.
Gochuku, for
That's
that
what we need.
contribution.
And also let them release our leader. That's the most
All right.
important thing.
Thank you,
Any
Gochuku. I have to
moment.
end that call there, because we're not here to talk about Biafra, neither are we here to set it up. But one thing is for sure is that regardless of who comes in as a president, we want a better Nigeria. It's not about being separated. It's not a divided nation. We do not want a divided nation, whether it's the IPOP that wants to be on their own or any other to know. We want a united nation, that together we can put our hands and make the country a better place. So, Gochuku, I just hope that you put your hands together and let us make Nigeria united and one again. Another story still on the Voice of Liberty. We have Nigeria records 244 cases of Lassa fever and 37 deaths coming from the NCDC. And on 2023, why Nigeria must tackle fuel scarcity before the polls. This is coming from the West African Democracy Group. And, just in line with what I was saying before the call came in. we can see here the West African Democracy Group are actually saying they should tackle the issue of this. So I hope that will be fixed, Rachel, before the polls, because really we need this petrol, even not just for the election, but for the fact that we need our farmers to transport the food from the farm down there. We saw that on the papers. It was being, we had a warning that said we'll have, we'll be having possibly flooding this year much more. So I hope we'll do something. We have Mr. Mike on the line. Good morning.
Hello.
Mr. Mike, go on, please.
Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mike.
I'm very ashamed if the president says he appreciate him, because there's nothing to appreciate him for. Taking, for instance, in Southern Canada, our lives, many lives and properties have been destroyed. And we are here and the backing Muslim people for the forthcoming election. What are we appreciating for? A man that is partial, a man that has nothing to offer. So please, there is a ordinary and no continuity, no president to be good enough looking at the performances. Look at the look at the
Mr. Mike, your voice is fading. Maybe we'll end the call, then you call us back again. Please, thank you so much, Mr. Mike. Even though I actually got a little from what he was saying, the fact that the government is bad. But we're not here. I just hope that we'll be mindful of our languages. When I know we are very bitter about things that are not going well in the country presently. But Richard, I hope that we just keep praying and hoping and be part of the the change we intend to see. You cannot say you want the country to be better, and then as a POS agent you are asking for 100 naira per 1,000. We are sometimes we are the reason why we are where we are. If we can only unite ourselves, come together and fight one common enemy, which is the corruption. So I hope that we'll do that. We have another caller. Good morning. Hello, can you hear me? Please go on. Okay, maybe I will end the call, then you call us back again. Please, thank you so much. On 2023, even if you betray me, I won't get angry. Tinubu tells Edo electorate. And downside of the paper, court dismisses suit seeking to sack Buhari and cancel 2023 elections. So you can grab the Voice of Liberty and read any story that is of interest to you.
On the Nation newspaper, how overvoting voided Ademola Adelike's victory. Why Ekiti Cargo Airport is not functional yet, coming from the government. Suspected land grabbers seal Lagos school. But is UBA CEO for Africa operations? And the big story, banks fails to dispense
Richard,
cash.
let me cut you short. We have Mr. Tangor from Kaduna. Good morning, Mr. Tangor. Please, if you can hear me, go on. All right, so Richard, let's go on. We lost our caller.
All right, the big story on the Nation newspaper, bank fails to dispense cash in halls, ATM terminals. POS operators, hawkers sell Naira notes in cities. Emefiele action political, says reps leader. And we have an insight that says banks branches load 1 million Naira new notes daily in ATM machines. DSS links bank official arrest many. 1,000 Naira charged on every 10,000 Naira. Protester raise APC office, Tinubu Shetima Osun Center. Coming from Tinubu, we will use oil to develop Akwa Ibom. At the downside of the paper, Abuja Kaduna train service resume, and then African Development Bank votes $1.5 billion for food production. You can read that on page 7. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take this caller, Mr. Dan. Good morning. Hello, Mr. Dan, are you there? Okay, I have to end our call. All right, let's take the last paper I'll be taking for today, which is the Business Day newspaper. Worst ever Modi rating sends Nigerian Eurobonds trembling. And we have UBA appoints Bauer as first female CEO for Africa's operations. Federal government inaugurate NSIA $16 million solar power project that you can find on page 29. Cash disappears in bank ATMs after CBN extend deadline as POS operators charge premium of new naira. And an analysis says angst over petrol scarcity since spurring into mayhem. And we have a fact check that says Buhari's 13 million agri jobs claim conflict with reality. You can read more of that story on page 2. And that's all on the Business Day newspaper and how far we can go on the show this morning. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much to our producer, our crew members, and thank you also to everybody that makes sure this program is prompt on air, our supporters, and also to the Equa executive for a platform like this. Until we come here again tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.